on the ground, on the sea, under the sea. I saw an old parking sign the other day that said, don't even think about parking here. So that's my message to this generation. Keep America so strong that no tyrant or ambitious government will even think about attacking us. I guess that picture shouldn't be in there, but that's the way I looked about the time of the attack. And afterward, the Admiral mentioned we were going to have a book signing up the other end. This book was written when I was 102, which my publishers tell me is the oldest male author that ever published a book. And I covered the book, not only Pearl Harbor, but what on before and after, including my experience in being showered with radioactive material in the 1954 beach bomb test at McKinney. I was in that by accident, but I was there anyway. More details of my story, not only in the book, but there's several websites. One of them is the USS West Virginia .org. We keep a website. Just click on the stories. Now, I found out that I can't possibly anticipate what your questions are about Pearl Harbor. So I've also learned that, or at least I believe, that the learning process is getting answers to questions in which you have personal interest. So if it's okay, I'll take the next few minutes asking you, are there questions you'd like to ask me? And I can't hear from there, but you can hear the questions while you repeat them to me.
Sir?
Yes, sir. I wanted to ask you, do the Pearl Harbor survivors have a Facebook page, or is there any sort of organization that you keep with the survivors that are left? Because I know I went looking on the internet and I saw that the Armed Forces Retirement Home, there's 2 of them. I would imagine there would be some there. But have you met many, and are there any sort of organization?
I think I heard most of it. Actually, it's believed there were 86,000 military people on the island on the morning of the attack, including the Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard. We believe there are less than 1,000 that have survived. Many cities had Pearl Harbor Survivor Associations, but they've got down so few and so few able to travel that they're not officially their organization anymore. But most of them have their own organizations.
Hi, Jack Sumi with Navy N2 and 6. Possibly several of us that are here today were in the building on 9/11. I'd just like to ask, when you heard about 9/11, the attack on the Pentagon, and the attack in New York, did you equate that or feel the same kind of feelings to how you felt at Pearl Harbor?
You repeat yourself, please.
Okay. On the, when you heard of the attacks of 9/11, did it bring back memories?
Yes, it did, and I'm often asked for comparisons, and I feel about the only comparison is the number of people killed. Because after Pearl Harbor, our security was endangered, but New York was a local thing, and so there's really no comparison as to the danger done by each of the attacks.
Morning, sir. Lieutenant Andrew Poole. It's a tremendous honor that you're here. Thank you very much for your comments. I'm wondering, I'm wondering with Memorial Day coming up, just what your thoughts are on Memorial Day, what does it mean to you, and what you would say for the younger generation that's joining and serving today? Thank you.
What does Memorial Day mean to you?
I'm going to speak on that next Monday. I don't have my notes with me. But I think I remember a little bit. And that is that since the Revolutionary War and during that war, over about 612,000 men and women have laid down their lives for their country. So it means to be remembering the heroes. And today is a link between the heroes of the past and those of the future, one continuation. That the patriotism is exercised is just almost unbelievable. But that didn't end with the Revolutionary War. It's present in our armed forces today, and will continue to be in the future. So it's about the heroic activity of the people in the military and some civilians from the Revolutionary War through today.
Good morning, sir. I'm Chaplain Charles Causey from the Office of Chief of Chaplains here. And I heard that the Navigators started partly with you and Dawson Trotman coming a few months before the Pearl Harbor attack. And I wondered if you could talk about that, what happened on the ship before the attack, and maybe how your faith played a role in the attack.
Yes, Dawson Trotman was 7 years older than I was. I met him when I was 20. And he was a young man that would have been a success no matter what he undertook. But he became a Christian in his early 20s and wanted to perpetuate his beliefs. He got together a number of groups, but he laid such heavy discipline on them that they didn't last. So one day he met a sailor on the USS West Virginia, my ship, that went in the Navy to save money to go to seminary and become a pastor. And he bought everything Dawson Trotman helped him with, hook, line, and sinker. He was a friend of mine, as were the next 5 that came along, and I was number 6. And at the time of the attack, we had about 125 people in our group there. After the attack, they scattered out to other ships. So I've never known many cases of individual heroism that morning. I remember one of my friends said all he could think about was humming a tune, rescue the perishing, care for the dying. By the time I got aboard ship, all of our guns were disabled. We were sinking everything above the waterline on fire. I knew where the ready ammunition was on my ship. So I borrowed a hose from the Tennessee we were tied up next to and tried to put out the fires to keep it away from live ammunition. But while doing that, I couldn't help but look at the bodies lying around. And the thing that occurred to me was their parents will never know how they spent their last hours. And so with a fire hose in one hand, I went around rubbing the name tags and memorizing names to write their parents a letter. And in the afternoon, after the fires were out, I went over to the hospital. There were probably nearly 100 men burned into suspension, blind, their hair burned off, hardly able to talk. But I went down the line, and each one of them that could talk, I said, if you give me your parents' address, and dictate a short paragraph. I will see if they get it, which I did, typed up later. I got many letters from their parents, many of them who had been misinformed that the word they got they'd been killed in action. But both professionally and in their faith, I say there were a lot of heroes. And I say if the Department of Defense ever decided to decorate everybody that deserved decoration, they'd have to buy ore mines in Utah and cotton fields in Texas and a dye factory someplace to mine the ore for the metals and weave the ribbons for the people who deserve it. So everybody was a hero.
Sir. Yes, sir. Commander Udi, I'm sure there's some large changes in the Navy after Pearl Harbor. You know, a lot of people that served in World War II didn't have all that experience you did before the war started. So, what are some of your reflections about some of the biggest things you saw change? Obviously, beyond the fact that we're fighting the Japanese. I mean, you talked a lot about, you know, you're bottled up, and I'm sure there was some major shifts in how you trained and what the mindset was.
Yeah. Oh, so they, okay. In, when you after World War II, you had experience
Yes, I think that I'm a realist, and I can't do anything about what happened yesterday. I can't do too much about what happens tomorrow. So I live a day at a time. On December 6th, I had a job to do. I did the job. On December 7th, during the attack, I had a job to do, and I did it. On December 8th, I had a job to do. It was damage control and cleanup. I did that. So I live every day at a time. And World War II did not have any bad effects on me personally, because that's history.
Any other questions?
Good morning, sir. Thank you for speaking with us today. I'm Candace Eckert. You mentioned that one of your feelings was a feeling of resolve. And I'm curious how you applied that feeling of resolve as a commanding officer when you looked at your sailors, and how you changed perhaps your leadership style as a result of your experiences.
Okay, I'll be glad to respond to that. And I'll try to use my words carefully. That during the Cold War, there were a lot of extraordinary things happened. We had a task force operating in the Mediterranean. Cruisers, ships from other nations, at least one nation, would come in the middle of formation. Now, the commanding officer of every ship is very careful that his ship doesn't touch anything else. So the admiral commanding one of these task forces took a cruiser, American cruiser, and put tires all the way around it, and his job was to push the enemy ship out of the formation. So he deliberately made that contact. I was operating in Alaska, and one night a high-speed torpedo boat I picked up on the radar, and he was trying to take the right of way from me. What chicken? No, I'll be the one that gave up. I manned the guns, down general quarters, and got my people ready. When he got so close, I was going to fire a warning shot around the bow. It's the same thing we talked about. Weakness invites aggression. And I decided I would not show any weakness. And he turned away. That's my resolve. I'll never yield to any right-of-way for somebody else that belongs to me.
Any other questions?
Admiral Fogo, do you want to say any words at this point? We know you wanted to be here at the beginning, but...
Bethesda, thank you very much, and sir, thank you for joining us all this morning. Really appreciate your candid remarks.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I was the stand-in, so... Let me just wrap up with a couple observations. Is one, Jim, at the time he enlisted in the Navy, it was an all-volunteer force. The draft only came into effect a little over a year before the actual attack on Pearl Harbor. So the vast majority of the people serving in the Navy at the time were volunteers like us. And they served at a time when budgets were extremely low, pay was low, promotions were slow. As an after effect from the carnage of World War I, there was a very strong isolationist, anti-military feeling in much of the country. And yet, despite this, when their time came, they did their duty no matter what, with extraordinary courage and bravery, and many of them sacrificed their lives for this country, despite the fact that we were not ready for war. So, you know, nothing absolved them of doing their duty, and they did it in superb fashion. So, sir, if I may offer you just a small token of my personal appreciation, a command coin from Naval History and Heritage Command, and thank you very much.